Joining me is family physician, UBC assistant professor, and he's also a chronic pain expert and an author. Welcome back to Doctor's Corner, Dr. Wayne Phimister.
Thank you, Christy.
So today's topic, we're going to talk about gut health. Now, this is a very popular topic, and you talk about it a lot. What is gut health, and how does it affect you?
Gut health, it comes down to this. Inside your gut, we have something called the microbiome, which are full of bacteria and other microorganisms that they actually outnumber the cells in our body 10 to 1. Now that just sounds like a ratio or a statistic, but when you actually think about it, in our bodies we have 30 trillion cells, give or take. So in our gut we have 300 trillion bacteria and other microorganisms. So the gut health is all about those microorganisms being happy and being healthy. And that's what it comes down to.
Is there good bacteria?
Good bacteria, bad bacteria. Yeah, I think that's a really good way of looking at it. And what I found in my research and also in my patients and also myself is that when we eat foods that trigger inflammation in the gut and therefore in the body, the bad bacteria, as it were, start to predominate and they literally run the show, which leads on to many chronic diseases that physicians are treating as a regular basis. And the amazing thing is when you start to be educated and then imply a different lifestyle, a different diet, the bugs change. And my personal experience, as is written in the literature, it takes about maybe 4 weeks or so to start seeing these changes. And when you do, some of the amazing things that happens is, one, you don't get hungry. Can you imagine just never getting hungry?
That would be good. Keep your weight down.
You don't get hungry. And you don't crave certain foods. You don't crave carbs.
Carbs.
You don't crave them, and your life is very different.
Because, a runner or, those who are exercising a lot, carbs are necessary. So.
Well, carbs are necessary. Carbs are one of the 3 basic macronutrients. You've got carbs, fats, and proteins. And carbs break down in the body to sugar. And we all know that we need glucose as the main molecule of sugar. And we need that in every cell of our body every second of the day. But the amazing thing is, in my reading, was not only do we get glucose from carbs, but we get it from protein and we get it from fat. So we must get it. It's just which foods are we going to choose to create the best health outcome for your gut?
What about oatmeal?
Oatmeal, great one. I ate oatmeal for a couple of decades. Loved it. And that was one of the shocking things when I did the research and reading, well, what are these grains? Talk about carbs and grains. What are the grains that can literally cause an inflammatory response? The big one is wheat, and there's others like rye and barley. But oats is within that 4 grains that literally do cause inflammation. And it's a tricky one, as you know.
But I guess just in moderation and depending on the symptoms that you're having. So how do you know you have poor gut health?
Well, I think number one, if all our viewers just look at their diet, I would say all of us at some time in their life have been eating grains. It's just one of the staples. We're advised to eat it. And the principle really is not about restriction and you can't eat this or that, but it's more about understanding the principle and then removing foods that cause inflammation, maybe for about 6 weeks, so quite a restrictive approach, and then reintroducing the foods that you love, maybe your oatmeal. And then if you feel good, then you're good to go, no problem. It's not about restriction, it's about understanding and just doing what your body says.
Right, and the Grain Brain is a book. Tell us about that.
Grain Brain, wonderful book. Plant Paradox is another wonderful book that I've been reading and looking at the research behind these amazing collection of studies that are literally showing our bodies are suffering because of grains, hence the title of the book, The Grain Brain. And in that focus, it's looking at cognitive problems, maybe like dementia or Parkinson's disease, and a variety of others, but being affected by the grains that we actually eat.
And then we don't know, like, until it's, you know, showing in our feeling tired or not feeling, you know, 100%. And then and how do you treat it?
Well, I just introduce the subject to my patients, and I just go through the different food groups, and I look at specifically what they're eating and what they love to eat. And then I just give a little tailored plan of some subtle changes they could make in the next week or two. And then I send them off and give them the literature to read, and then they can, you know, get more insights themselves. And how far down this rabbit hole do they really want to go? Some people are like 100%, they want to do it right now. So there is I get them to Google Plant Paradox shopping list, and then on there's a yes list of foods that you eat and a no list of foods that you avoid, and they can jump in right away and just follow those lists. And that's for some, I'd say a small group of patients. But the majority of my patients just want to take it a step at a time. You know, as they go shopping in the next week, they want to maybe buy this oil versus that oil, or, you know, this flour versus that flour. And over time they can change their gut health by making better choices regarding inflammation.
Right, and can you share us any stories, success stories? Success
stories? I think myself, just going back when I looked at this early in the year, you know, I was amazed at the information. I says, well, I've got to do this. You know, I've got to, if I'm going to talk about it with my patients, then I need to know what to say. And reading a book and some medical articles is not sufficient. So my experience was around the 3 to 4 week mark, I just wasn't getting hungry anymore. And, you know, I removed the oats, I'd removed the fruit, I was eating avocados, and, you know, a variety of, you know, lots of vegetables and salads and nuts. You know, two nuts that are advised not to eat is cashews and peanuts, but the other nuts are all great because they're a great source of protein and a great source of fat, healthy fats. And I think just my own experience, which was tying into some of my patients' experiences, right off the bat, you know, I personally didn't have any pain symptoms to focus on. I did lose some weight, and that's very common because once you stop the insulin levels of, you know, eating carbohydrates or grains as a regular basis, then you're going to start losing weight. So I think that was the biggest change on me. And then quickly, within about 3 months, I realized, look, this is not good. I was going too thin. I ate more fats, and I put back on the weight. And now I'm pretty stable. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
You know, the book Plant Paradox, it talks about lectins.
Lectins, yeah.
Sorry. So what is exactly
lectin? So Lectin, lectin, is an inflammatory protein, and it's found in lots of foods, healthy foods. We've talked about the grains already. In proteins, a big subject. You know, you can eat meat if that's your choice, but with meat you've got to be careful, because it's in the foods that the animals eat is where the grains come. So if it's, say, organic chicken or organic beef, well, it's organic feed. There is grains or soy coming into the feed, into the animal, and then that's what we're eating. So it's a very interesting, tricky one, you know. But protein, milk that's got casein M1 proteins, they are North American, North European cows that produce their milk. They've got this lectin-based, inflammatory-based protein. But you can take the milk, and if it's changed into, say, a high-fat yogurt like Greek yogurt, say 10%, that's okay because it denatures the proteins and changes the structure, therefore you're not getting the lectin load. You've got cream, so you like your coffee, cream in the coffee, that high-fat cream is okay.
Oh, good.
And also Southern Europe cheeses, like the Italian, French, Swiss cheeses are Southern Europe, and their milk proteins are different to North America and also North Europe. So that's kind of the proteins. And then, as I briefly said earlier, if you want to do this, you end up eating lots of salads, lots of veggies. But on the subject of vegetables, it's interesting that when we look at the nightshade vegetables, many people find an intolerance to the seeds and the skins of these animals. And I had a patient shared a story just about a month ago, and they had a raccoon come and eat the food from the garbage, but they didn't eat the tomato. And it's like, well, why did the raccoon not eat the tomato? And it ties into the story of what happened back 200 years ago when the tomato was brought to Italy, and the Italians got sick from this vegetable, or technically a fruit because it's got seeds, but and then they realized it's the skins and the seeds that were literally causing health problems. So they removed the skins and seeds, and the problems went away. And that's probably one of the biggest changes I see in my patients, is when they remove the skins and seeds of nightshade vegetables, which is not only tomatoes, but tomatoes and peppers, which is the big two, eggplants, zucchinis, and even cucumber. And there's a few tricks of the trade, to learn. It's not about restriction, as I said. You can cook these vegetables in a pressure cooker, which will denature the lectin, or slow cooking all day is another way of doing it. But you can choose to maybe avoid these fruits and vegetables for about 6 weeks to just make sure you're minimizing the lectin load or the inflammatory load. So that's kind of an overview of the three main food groups and how it can affect most people.
So peel your vegetables.
Peel your vegetables? Well, cucumber I think is a good idea.
Yeah. So for the viewers watching, what resources could you give?
So if you want to read more on the subject, The Grain Brain is a great book written by David Perlmutter. He's East Coast, I think he's a gastroenterologist. Wonderful, wonderful book with hundreds and hundreds of research articles attached to it. And also Stephen Gundry's book, The Plant Paradox, very popular, and again got lots of resources in there.